Fans and drivers love coming to the Pocono Mountains of eastern Pennsylvania. Lots to do here aside from racing, Lake Harmony, all kinds of water sports, wildlife, and of course a very enjoyable way to get away and spend a weekend on the lake and then on Sunday at the racetrack. Glad to have you with us here at the racetrack, Pocono Raceway. We call it the Tricky Triangle as we get set for happy hour and our live coverage. In case you just joined us, we're in the earlier practice session today. The big story was this car, or not this car, this team, because this is the backup car. The team of Tony Stewart went out in the very first lap in turn 3, and Tony Stewart's car slips up and has contact with the concrete. That was just enough to damage the right side of his Old Spice Chevy, and they had to come back and roll a new one out. 30 minutes later, Tony able to take this car back on the racetrack and get it in the top 21 in speeds. Let's update the 14 car. Vince.
Well, as busy as this team was in getting this backup car ready for Tony Stewart to put 20 laps on it during that practice session, they've been equally busy during the break between the two sessions, fine-tuning it, getting it to be a more comfortable car for Tony during this next session. And Tony Stewart was most upset in that incident, obviously at himself, but also because these guys have worked so hard to get these race cars ready, and now they're in a situation where they're having to continue that hard work and continue that preparation when certainly as a team owner and a driver, he wishes his crew guys weren't having to do that. Dave?
Vince, Greg Biffle's about to jump into the 16 car again, and remember, he's 11th in the chase contention right now, just 84 points to the good. So how much progress did you make on this race car in the last practice session, and what are you still fighting?
Well, we gained some on it, 3 and 4 Fusion. The guys are changing some things around in the front geometry, so we're pretty happy with the car. We just thought we'd take this second practice session, maybe not quite a test, but see if we can find some more turn in the car for the race tomorrow, but we can always put it back. We're pretty happy with the car in the first practice.
And Greg Irwin said the main thing was the flat part of the racetrack, still a little bit tough to turn, the turn 3.
Yeah, we're having most of our trouble in the tunnel turn, and then I was a little bit tighter down there in 3 and 4 than I wanted to be, and I know the track's going to take more rubber to get tighter as it goes, so I want to be a hair on the free side right now to start the race.
The track of compromises, you just try to get as close as you can, Doc.
Greg Biffle just missed the top 5 here back in June. Had to pit in the final laps for fuel. Ended up finishing in 11th spot. Cars rolling toward the racetrack for happy hour. And in the previous practice session, take a look at the speeds in the top 10. It was Jimmy Johnson atop the speed charts. And a good effort for the Richard Childress team. Clint Boyer second overall. Kevin Harvick 5th. You see cousin Carl Edwards, who won this race a year ago, back in 3rd. There's Jeff Gordon, the 4-time winner. Kyle Busch short in the top 10. There's the Dodge of Casey Kane. Andy Petrie, good to have you back up in the booth. Thanks for going down and hanging out with Tim Brewer. Nice job between you and Tim Brewer. 7 wins here at Pocono Raceway with 6 different drivers. So a pretty good combination, the U2 Championship crew chiefs.
Yeah, it was fun down there. Brewer's got a lot of nice toys and things to show and tell. That was kind of fun.
This racetrack at Pocono is a very unique combination of turns, all with differing radiuses and all with differing degrees of banking.
We talked about the 3 turns. Here's turn 1 that has the most banking. It was a racetrack in Trenton, New Jersey that it was designed after. 14 degrees of banking down there.
And turn 2 was designed after Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You see the 90-degree turns there. That's what the tunnel turn is here, and then we go over to turn 3.
Yeah, it's designed from Milwaukee, which has a long sweeping corners on that 1-mile oval. You really have to carry a lot of speed out of turn 3 to go down that long front straightaway.
This track, originally designed by IndyCar legend Roger Ward in the late 60s, it opened in 1971. The very first race here was actually a USAC stock car race, 500-mile, a USAC IndyCar race in 1971, won by the late Mark Donahue. Richard Petty won the very first stock car race here back in August of '74. And it was Buddy Baker on the pole for that one, and Richard Petty going to victory lane.
And years ago, there used to be a 3/4-mile racetrack in the center part right here, utilizing the front straightaway.
Here's Kyle Busch we're riding along with. And when I first started racing here, you used to always talk about compromising. This is turn 1 with the degree of banking. It used to run right on the bottom, but it's kind of rough down there. You can see these guys have moved up the racetrack, carrying some speed off of here. But you wanted to compromise a little bit. You always seem to be a little bit too tight down in turn 1. the tunnel turn, you just kind of dealt with it the best that you could. You really wanted to have your car working in turn 3 where you could get off and utilize that front straightaway, long front straightaway. That's where you made most of your passes. I think that's changed now. I think turn 1 has become the most important and probably the place that these guys look to make passes more than anywhere else.
It surely has the character down there because it is bumpy. You try to get down on the bottom where you feel like you could make some time. It is very violent down there. I mean, you really have to negotiate a lot of bumps and swells.
As you watch Kyle Busch coming on the straightaway, we talked about what we're going to see on Sunday, the double file restarts. And we saw back in June, this is the first track they ever had double file restarts on shootout style in NASCAR. And the leaders were choosing the outside line to be on the outside of row 1 as opposed to the inside because of entering turn 1.
Yeah, you get your car, arrow loose. You'll hear us talk about that a little bit. We don't want to, over exaggerate it or talk too much about it, but it is something that happens. You get down in there and that car down the inside gets that air taken off of it. You get extremely loose and you can't carry any speed. You're late getting back to the throttle. So we saw Jimmy Johnson make that pass last week at Indy. We saw Juan Pablo Montoya do it to Mark Martin on the 5th lap of the race. That's exactly what we'll see here. I think most of these guys choose that outside line.
See Kevin Harvick right here, and he was in the top 5 in the first practice session, jumped up to 2nd in this session, so I believe that this Childress organization has really found something in these new cars.
Yeah, and things have heated up here. Jimmy Johnson's atop the charts once again, but he's about a half a second slower with his fast lap than what it was in that first session, so the racetrack is getting more like what they're going to see tomorrow.
Another maybe surprise in the top 5 right now in speeds is the 44 car of A.J. Allmendinger. Now, A.J. Allmendinger spun this car yesterday in the only session they got on the track. He spun it in the grass down in turn 1, got it in the mud, didn't hit anything. But here's a young man that continues to get stronger and stronger with every race that he gets experience at.
This guy's really got a lot of talent, and they are starting to see some of the results. And here he is like in the top 5. That's showing just how strong this team is.
Yeah, I don't believe he's utilizing the new engine either. So, that's something that this team is a little bit behind on. Casey Kane's had it, Elliott Sadler's had it now for the second race. But, yeah, AJ's got a tremendous amount of talent. And I think he looks at this kind of like a road course, and he really enjoys coming here.
He's got Sammy Johns down there calling the shots on this car, too. And he's a veteran crew chief and a lot of experience and definitely helping AJ.
Here's Sam Hornish Jr. We talk about how Sam has come a long way here in his second full year in the sport. 2 top 5 starts in 2009, 4 top 10 finishes, including a 10th place finish here at Pocono back in June.
Well, you're talking about, sometimes it's easy to criticize and look and say, well, he's not making much progress, but you have to understand, he'd never driven anything like this. This was totally foreign, and these new cars that he didn't drive any of the old cars, so he didn't really know what that was like, but he came in and saw that these things were a handful, but learning the racetracks and learning these cars, I think he's doing a tremendous job.
And here's a driver that I really felt disappointment for last week at Indianapolis. Elliott Sadler was going to finally get a chance to run the new Dodge engine and ended up having a leak early on. And at a track where he had been so good, he never even got a shot.
Yeah, and Elliott told me yesterday that this was, they fought that leaking oil problem the entire weekend and they thought they had it fixed, but it obviously got them. Would it have made sense to have changed that engine before? Yeah, maybe so in a big race like that.
Yeah, it's easy to say now that you would probably do that, but you have to develop that new stuff, and to do it, you've got to find ways to run it and make mistakes and fix them. I mean, that's part of the development process.
But he's still very upbeat, thinking that they can get things righted and he can have some good runs. Really likes racing here.
Well, the car that qualified 3rd in Indianapolis is here at Pocono, and that's Dale Earnhardt Jr., and now he has moved all the way up to 5th on the speed chart.
Yeah, they had a real spark last week. After seeing how they ran there, they had to go away from there, even though you're extremely disappointed anytime you blow up. But, hey, when you run like they ran at Indy,
snug in the center of turn 1 and turn 3. And it gets a little bit free off of turn 1.
And that is Junior's live feedback to the team there. The tire condition was one that the team had just told me he was probably going to report. They were free all around during the last session, and they think they might have overdid it just a little bit as far as tightening the car up, and you heard at least half that report was certainly about the car being difficult to turn for Junior.
Well, we heard him talk about putting a bigger sway bar in the car, and that's certainly going to hurt that center of the corner. But now they've got it tightened up. It allows them to do something else that maybe they can get the car turning in the center and then not hurt that exit anymore.
It's all a combination. You put everything together. Sometimes it's not just one change that's going to really put the car where you need it. It's a combination of things like, okay, we'll use this spring, this bar, and shock combination. And if that doesn't work, we'll go with another one. So it's usually not just one thing that sets the car really on fire.
Yep, that's really good information Junior was giving back there. You know, what the car's doing in the center of each of those corners and then on the exit also.
This weekend is a landmark for this driver, John Andretti. He is making his 500th professional motorsports start. He's had 376 in the Sprint Cup, 37 in Nationwide, 6 in the truck, 73 in Champ Car, and 7 in the IRL. So congratulations to John Andretti. 500 starts as a professional race car driver.
Yeah, I saw him last night. They had a little get-together down in the compound in the infield, and had his Uncle Mario down there. So it was good to see all the Andrettis.
In terms of his Sprint Cup career, John has 2 wins. His last win coming at Martinsville Speedway back in the spring of 1999. That was 209 races ago. There he has 4 poles. You see the 37 top 10 finishes. And that win, by the way, was driving for the King, Richard Petty.
Got Juan Pablo Montoya now in 6th position in the speed chart right now. He's got that car he had at Indy. They felt really good about this car, obviously. I mean, the way it ran at Indianapolis, and they really hope to come here and just pick up where they left off.
Andy, I think Brian Patty is a big part of their success there. Don't you agree with the knowledge
Absolutely.
that he has?
You know, I heard a lot this week, you know, what could Brian Patty or the crew chief have done to avoid that penalty? And there's a lot of things that, you know, Brian has done for this team. I mean, that really is kind of in the driver's hands when you start talking about pit road speed. But Brian Patty has kept the focus on the chase and keeping this team really focused on making the chase. And then he says they have a plan. When they do make this chase, they're going to throw a lot of stuff at this car and try to go for broke, try to win this championship. But he knows how important it is to get this car into the top 12 after 26 races.
Juan Pablo had the car to beat throughout much of the day last week at Indianapolis, but when the checkered flag waved, it was the 48 car that was headed to victory lane for the 3rd time at the Brickyard. And there is Jimmy Johnson, the 3-time Cup Series champion and now 3-time winner of the Brickyard 400. Vince.
You know, some teams will tell you that what happens at Indy can often transfer to Pocono. Some will disagree with that, but one thing is for sure, Jimmy Johnson was good at Indianapolis, and he's been very good here at Pocono today. He was first in the first practice. He's fastest in this practice as well. He says the car is driving fine, very comfortable, just a little bit tight. So the team's making a shock adjustment, a shock change up in the front end, and they're going to work on it a little bit and go back out and try again. But that might be bad news for the rest of the field. This 48 is very good here today.
Yeah, it'd be hard to convince me that it doesn't carry over from Indianapolis to here. Jimmy's not making a very good argument for that right now.
Yeah, I think most of the drivers will tell you that, and maybe the crew chiefs too, Andy, that the reason that you can't carry quite as much over with this new car in particular is because how rough this racetrack here has gotten. So, but there are things, you talk about momentum, but just things that you learned that you can utilize here, and these guys obviously are the best at doing that.
Jimmy Johnson's preparations ongoing, and we are preparing to bring you qualifying live from Iowa, from the new Iowa Speedway in Newton, Iowa, for the NASCAR Nationwide Series coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And, of course, live flag-to-flag coverage, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, presented by GoDaddy.com. Also, our coverage here tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern at Pocono, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, presented by Old Spice. That's on ESPN, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. And, of course, NASCAR Now, pre-race edition, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, presented by 5 Hour Energy, and post-race at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, wrapping up the day. Live coverage of Happy Hour coming your way from Pocono Raceway here in Long Pond, Pennsylvania, along with Dale Jarrett and Andy Petrie. I'm Jerry Punch. Glad to have you with us. Tony Stewart, who had to go to a backup car here after having a lap 1 incident in the earlier practice session today, has done pretty well in the backup car. He was 21st at the end of that first session after spending about 30 minutes trying to get that car on the racetrack. Here's the 12 car of David Stremme out in his Dodge. Let's see what David can do here. Look at his progression.
You can see he's 19th in this session. Times have definitely slowed down in this second practice session versus the earlier one when the track was a little cooler.
These guys are going to work hard on these cars and getting the setup. Of course, the temperature's up, so it's going to give them a good idea of what the track's going to be like tomorrow. But as they start the race tomorrow, they're going to have another variable thrown at them. There's an ARCA race here this afternoon that puts a different type rubber down the racetrack, so you always have to be careful of that. It seems that this track always starts out a lot looser after that ARCA race, and so you don't want to be making too big of an adjustment on that first pit stop.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We used to run happy hour sessions after the ARCA race, and that was always a very difficult thing because it seemed like it took half the practice to actually wear in the Goodyear rubber on top of that Hoosier rubber, and it took, you know, a lot of time to adjust for that. But now they have these practice sessions where it's ahead of time, and now the track is more like it's really going to be, say, after the race is 100 miles in.
Here's the 98 car, Paul Menard, and word coming out this week from the Yates camp. Doug Yates saying that Paul Menard will indeed be back with them in 2010. So Paul looking to try to get his first top 10 finish for Yates Racing this year here at Pocono.
I think that's a good thing for Doug Yates in trying to build this team, that they have some continuity and to have the same driver back. They've got sponsorship. It's only going to help this team to grow as they try to move forward. And, you know, we've heard about the prospects and possibility of Jamie McMurray going over and joining that and becoming a third car for that operation. So all of these things can work in their favor.
Yeah, Larry Carter, you see him right there. He's a veteran crew chief with a lot of experience and knowledge. Can only help Paul Menard progress in his career.
Joe Nemechek is here, by the way. There's front row Joe, the former NASCAR Nationwide Series champion. And Joe, if you had to give stars for effort, this team right here, Joe Nemechek did not have a ride when the year began, opted to run not only his own Sprint Cup operation, but his own NASCAR Nationwide Series operation with, I think, 5 total people, divvying it up 3 for the Cup car and 2, including the truck driver, for the Nationwide car. And he has come and run every single weekend.
He does it with a great attitude. I talked to him this week, midweek, and he says he's feeling pretty good about some things for next year, where they can have some sponsorship on his team and really put a lot better effort out there. So he was very upbeat this week.
Yeah, he's made an alliance with the Red Bull team, and that's where he gets his cars and engines and things, and that's worked out well for him. Now if they can just get the money to go with that, it'd be great to see that happen for Joe and his family.
You were talking about the Red Bull team, the 83 car. Brian Vickers coming off that 5th place finish last week, back in the garage area. Let's go down there.
And Doc, one of the best reasons to rent a scanner on race weekend is to overhear conversations that make you go, huh, really? Here was Brian Vickers on the radio 1 run ago.
Last run, last time we were on the racetrack, to roll through 1 in 3rd gear, for instance, my steering would go from the mark being 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Right now, to roll through 1 in 3rd gear, I'm having to go from 12 o'clock to 6 or 5 o'clock. That's not right.
Just unhook the shocks. I guess we'll check the tow here.
And one of the best reasons to have a Craftsman Tech Garage is because you can have a guy like Tim Brewer explain to you what the is all about. Tim?
There's a lot of different things that a driver looks at, but the steering wheel is one of the most important locators, because this piece of tape, that's 12 o'clock. But when you put more steering input into the car, as the car gets tighter, the track gets more rubber down, you're going to turn the car harder. But there again, if the guys have been playing with a tow, trying to get more speed out of the car, you're going to come up to the front of the car. This is actually the tie rod end that sits in front of the axle, and we actually manipulate the tow. But what the guys try to do is to make the wheel straight ahead, so no drag on the wheel whatsoever. And occasionally, when you change that toe in, the driver will have more input on the steering wheel, and it changes it. And it's hard to trick these race car drivers, because places like Nashville, Tennessee, you'll want a lot of toe in the car to make the rear get more grip. But there again, every time that driver gets in and that position's in a different place, he knows that somebody changed something on that race car. So Brian Vickers, he's observant, he knows what's going on with his race car, and he provides very good input.
Thank you, Tim. Obviously, the drivers have to be sensitive to little changes on the race car, and they're still working on the 83 down there for Brian.
Yeah, this team's just made so much progress this year. And see right there, Ryan Pemberton, the crew chief, big leader over there. They're just before winning some races.
This is happy hour, so a lot of guys out on the racetrack trying to get dialed in. Here's the 36 car on the racetrack. That is Derek Cope. Oh, pardon me, that's Patrick Carpentier, my bad. And the car owned by Tommy Baldwin. Patrick, of course, he's the last rookie to win a pole. He won it last year as a rookie at New Hampshire. So Patrick, who is the IndyCar open wheel expert and road racing expert, he drove Michael Waltrip's 55 car at Infineon earlier in the year. And he will also be driving for Michael Waltrip Racing in the NASCAR Nationwide Series and when he goes back to his native Canada in Montreal.
It's good to see him back out here. He's a great guy and a lot of talent. I mean, he had an opportunity here and made, I felt like, the most of it. It's just the economy is such that I guess these rides are changing around, and he was caught out without one, but he's a great talent and a good guy. I'd like to see him back out here more.
Yeah, and you see two people here with Tommy Baldwin and Patrick, two guys that are wanting to make something happen here in this series, trying to go at it together and see if they can attract some sponsorship for that team and hopefully make some things good for both of them down the road.
Joey Logano also on the racetrack, and you can't say enough about what the 19-year-old has done this year. Not only the win at New Hampshire, but what he did last week at Indianapolis Motor Speedway impressed a lot of the veterans in the garage area.
He's really come a long way. Just like you said last week at Indianapolis, the aggressiveness that he went at the end of the race, he used a lot of patience and poise in the beginning when he started in the rear, made his way up methodically, but when it came right down to racing, he was racing Montoya for a spot, and he didn't give an inch.
No, he doesn't mind if he has to bang fenders a little bit. He doesn't mind doing that, but he takes care of his equipment, and he's really doing a good job. Very impressive from the beginning of the season when he didn't really have the feel that he wanted for these cars and helping Greg Zipadelli and that team get to where these cars are much more competitive. Dave?
DJ, as far as car condition goes right now, Greg Zipadelli right there had him in the garage for quite some time, making what car chief Jason Shapiro described as a lot of little changes. Nothing really big, but lots of little changes. That's because most of the way around the track, in all three corners, Joey's car was tight, had difficulty turning that 20 car.
Now here's the 14 car coming up to speed here in happy hour. Again, this is a backup car. The primary car they lost in the first lap of the earlier practice today, and it took 30 minutes to get this car out. He was 21st in speed in this car at the end of that first session. Let's see what he can do now getting this car dialed in here in the happy hour practice.
Yeah, they took some extra time in making the changes that they wanted to, and that's really better than just jumping back out there, just getting time on the racetrack. They wanted to be very precise in what they were doing, making sure the car was where they wanted it to start this second session.
Yeah, that's what we talked about between practices. It's the time to do that, and that's what they needed to do, is take some time and get this set up right, and then they're back out on the track. Looking at Brian Vickers, we're just going to watch his telemetry right here. You see turning 9,000 plus down the front stretch. Just want to see the RPM changes, and how you see that as it gets way down in the corner here, 6,000 RPMs. Now you're pulling back up. This is why this track is so unique. I mean, you've got to have an engine with a broad power range to be able to run here.
We talked in the first session, they used to be able to change, you used to shift gears here. You would have a transmission that you could shift, so you could get a lower gear, which would turn more RPMs to come off of these corners.
Yeah, and he's going down into turn 3, and this is the flattest corner on the track, and it leads to the longest straightaway. This is where you would really want that extra gearing to, pull a few more RPMs and really pull this car up off the corner. But now you see he's dropping down in the 6,000 range, and then it'll go all the way back up to the 9,300 plus.
In years past, you used to see so many DNFs here because of engine failure and just because of what you're talking about, how many RPMs and how you just punish the engines here. But in the last 9 races at Pocono Raceway, we have seen 2 or fewer DNFs because of an engine per race. And that means these engine folks have come a long way.
They really have. This place, like Dale and I were talking riding up here, it used to eat engines. I mean, this was the hardest track on the circuit on engines because of those extreme RPMs on the front straightaway. And then we started getting real creative. Like I said, started shifting and seeing just how hard we could be on them. Whew, man, that was close right there.
Well, the stars of NASCAR take on the tricky triangle of Pocono Raceway, and our live coverage comes your way tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And folks, Tony Stewart will do what he did in June. He'll start in the back of the pack. Can he duplicate that victory? Coverage beginning at 1 o'clock on ESPN. Happy hour continuing here at Pocono Raceway. Jimmy Johnson picking up where he left off a week ago at Indianapolis, where he was the best car on the racetrack. And he is indeed just that here and has been all day. He was the top car in speed on the previous practice session, and now it's number 1 on the chart, just in front of Kevin Harvick here in happy hour.
We've had kind of a change of the top 10 from the first practice session of what we saw. I think that as this track is heated up, it has brought out maybe some of the issues that some drivers will have as far as turning that fast speed. We have Carl Edwards down. He's in 23rd. We heard Kyle Busch in his interview in between the sessions talk about that they started out pretty good, but as the track heated up, they lost a little bit of grip, and that has been an issue I think they have fought here in the past, and they're trying to get something a little bit better than that for them to race with tomorrow. This guy doesn't have any problem here, though, Jimmy Johnson. They just seem to be on it. It's getting their time of year.
Here's a 31 car. Jeff Burton 17th right now in the point standings. And Jeff still looking for that first win for this team, or for Richard Childress Racing here in 2009.
Well, he's just wanting to turn some things around. He's been involved in a lot of wrecks and just lost a lot of points. He's ready to turn this thing around a little bit.
We talk about turnarounds. Last year, you know, he was a heavy hitter for much of the 2008 season. They had those 11 top 10 finishes. You see where he was in the points, coming in 3rd in the point standings.
This one right there, though, that's the one that's getting him.
17th. Hard to believe. As good as Jeff Burton is, not only and consistency has been his forte over the years. He's always in and around the top 10, and they're barely in the top 20. And Vince, the 99 car, has been back in the garage and is now headed back out.
Yeah, Carl Edwards very good in that first session, was 3rd quick, a little further down the speed chart here in the second session, 23rd, trying some different things to get this race car race ready. Of course, is very good here in June when they ran. He finished 2nd to Tony Stewart. Also, Carl Edwards kind of keeping an eye on the schedule, because he was scheduled to get out of the race car about 10 minutes before the end of this practice session and head to Iowa, where he's going to run in the nationwide race. So they're hoping to get this car where they want it, so Carl could still have an opportunity to get out a little bit early and make his way to Iowa for the nationwide race.
Andy, they could have done something in trying something a little different in between the sessions, tried something, made the changes that take a little bit longer, and that's why we don't see him turning the fast lap here.
Yeah, one thing too, they obviously were happy with their car. They were 3rd in that first session. And sometimes when you really have a good car, a good setup, you don't want to just say, okay, how do we make it better? Let's try a whole different combination. Let's try something we haven't been able to try lately, and it's an opportunity to test things. So they may have done that, and if they don't like what they're doing right now, they can just go back to their setup they had in the first practice.
Yeah, I think that's a key word you used there, test. These guys don't have test sessions that they can go to anymore. There's tracks that they can go that NASCAR doesn't run at, but these guys have to use a lot of these times as test sessions to try new things and just get a feel for that.
This is the same car that Carl ran here back in June when he led the most laps. He started 11th, led 103 laps, and finished 2nd to Tony Stewart. So a good race car coming back to what has been historically a good racetrack for Carl Edwards, and we'll be riding along with him all day Sunday, as he is our in-race reporter. If you'd like to pose a question for us to ask to Carl, log on to ESPN.com, search Ask the Driver, and maybe have your question answered by Carl during the pre-race. Adil Jarrett will ask him one of ours, and possibly your question as well.
Yeah, make sure you come up with something good. Carl's really good about answering questions, gives good detailed answers. You can see him battling this car a little bit here. I would just have to guess it's a little bit on the loose side.
See him doing something with his left hand over there on the straightaway.
Carl Edwards on the racetrack, and let's check in the David Rudiman garage. Dave.
He is in the garage right now, Doc, and they need his car to turn better. So they've changed a left rear shock, a left front spring, and a shock pecker I need to see a shock packer. Tim Brewer, you still hanging out in the Craftsman Tech Garage?
Yeah, Dave, we're still here. What a shock packer is, folks. This is the combination that they actually use. The rubber down here and here at the bottom, that's what the car's actually running on. That's the deflection. But when they need to raise the car up, what they'll do, they'll simply insert a plastic insert right there. And that one right there is about a 1/16 of an inch. We can move it about an 1/8 of an inch. But what it does, it controls the height of the car. But in a conversation earlier, we were talking about the high nutrition rate as far as engines. In past, we shifted here. And shifted meaning when you go down a front straightaway, you're turning a lot of RPMs, you're in high gear. But when you get to the corner, after you deaccelerate, the first thing you do is put it up in third gear, which lowers the ratio, and you turn a lot of RPMs across the short chute. But when you're coming here, you're thinking about, well, I'm going to turn the motor a lot of RPMs for 200 laps. But back in that era, when we threw it up in third gear, we effectively turned the engine a lot of RPMs through both short chutes. So 600 times rather than 200, that's the reason we blew up a lot of engines up near Pocono, Pennsylvania.
No doubt about it, Tim. This racetrack over the years could literally eat engines because of the punishment that they took here trying to get down this long straightaway.
The one thing that we have now is it's called a Spintron. It's a machine that these guys spin the valve train, the complete valve train system. They can predict now just how far these things will go, how long springs will last. They can analyze that thing in so many ways that it's very predictable now as far as reliability of these engines. If one of them blows up, it's usually something weird happens, a part like a malfunction or a flaw in a part that causes it to break. But very predictable now these engines are.
Watching David Rudiman's car in the garage. DJ, I know you were a part of that team for a while as you go back out and watch the 43 car of Reed Sorensen. But I want to ask you, David Rudiman's this whole Michael Waltrip team's come a long way in 1 year.
Yeah, it really has. They've done a phenomenal job. Whoa, see Reed Sorensen really loose as he exits the tunnel turn there. But Michael has done a really good job of getting the right people in the right places. And David Rudiman, I think now, they're getting the cars and the equipment caught up to his capabilities and his abilities as a race driver. So I think we're seeing exactly what he's capable of. This weekend's big for him. I think these next 2 weeks are really big for David and that team to get through with some good finishes here to give themselves an opportunity to make the chase.
Reed Sorensen coming off a 13th place finish at Indy, moved up a couple spots in the points, and here are a couple of guys still looking for that first win in 2009. There's Clint Boyer going by, Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah, 33 car just jumped up on our speed chart, and that's unusual to see that late in a practice session here. He's the only car that's done that, run his fast lap later in the session. That was his 6th lap on the track, and now he's moved up to the 7th spot, moving around Dale Jr.
See, this is turn 3 once again. This strip of asphalt that they added a couple of years ago that these guys found up here on a test session, that actually Dale Jr. was the first one to get up on it and start running there, and then everybody kind of saw what he was doing, and that's become the place to run through that corner. But as again, these guys say they're starting to lose some grip. It gives them opportunities to pass on the bottom side of turn 3, kind of do a slide job like we see some of them do in sprint cars.
Happy hour continuing here at Pocono Raceway, and following our coverage here at 1 o'clock Eastern time, we'll have NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying from Iowa Speedway out in Newton, Iowa. And of course, that's 1 o'clock, and then live flag-to-flag coverage of the inaugural NASCAR Nationwide visit to the new Iowa Speedway, presented by GoDaddy.com. That's at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Marty Reed, Rusty Wallace, and the gang. And tomorrow here, NASCAR Sprint Cup Series action at Pocono, presented by Old Spice, 1 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. NASCAR Now tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., presented by 5 Hour Energy to set the stage, and then we'll wrap it all up at 10 o'clock Eastern time with the final edition of NASCAR Now.
The X Games period are just amazing now. I mean, the talent that some of these kids have is just crazy.
If I could compete in any X Games event, it would be freestyle motocross. I would only get one shot at it, I'm sure, but that would be very cool to know how to do.
I'd have to practice an awful lot first. Right now, I can barely ride a two-wheeler, so you know, we'd have to learn a lot from the beginning.
I'd like to do the new rally that they have in the rally cars. I think that'd be pretty cool.
The big jump contest on the snowboards is just nuts. I've enjoyed snowboarding over the last few years, and when I get about a half a foot, I feel like I got about 5 feet off the ground, and I see these guys that are 2 stories in the air, and it just amazes me, you know, how they're able to pull off some of the stuff they do.
You can enjoy all the excitement of the X Games, 7:30 Eastern Time tonight on ESPN. Super X Racing, Moto X Freestyle Final, Skateboard Vert, and BMX Vert. Jamie Bestwick going for a gold medal three-peat. That's all the excitement of the X Games, 7:30 Eastern Time tonight on ESPN. And guys, how about Travis Pastrana? The punishment he took last night on that motorcycle. Oh, here's a future X Gamer right there.
I'm done with that.
You know what? I don't blame you. I saw some of those guys toss those bikes away last night after they hit very, very hard out there at X Games. Here's a 4-time Pocono winner, Jeff Gordon. Right now, 3rd in the point standings and trying to go to victory lane here for a 5th time.
He's currently 12th, as you see, in this final session. They're not as concerned about that fast lap time as they are as how much does the car fall off, and he's fallen off about 2 2/10 from the time that he ran that fast lap.
Yeah, it's a lot of give up here in these tires. I'm watching that also, and that's the thing too. You get a little heat on this track, it can lose up to 2 or 3 seconds a lap. Changes that RPM range, changes a lot of things when you slow down that much, but it's going to slow down, and you want to make sure you keep your car balanced for that.
This team very frustrated that they weren't as good as they wanted to be last week at Indianapolis. They qualified a disappointing 22nd, and they got better as the race progressed, and he was able to bring it home with a top 10 finish in 9th, but nowhere near where he wanted to be with his 2 teammates up there finishing 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, they certainly had high expectations going into that race, but I think they were, as frustrated as they were during the weekend, they were pretty happy with what they came away from there with, that they were able to make the car better and get Jeff in a good position to make a run there at the end and get himself in the top 10. He's really good here because he's so smooth with the throttle, with the steering wheel. He really works hard at getting his car to handle. You see that car come off the tunnel turn really straight. Here's the 11 cars. We were going to break there just a minute ago. Saw him wiping on the right side. He'd been into the wall at some point in time.
And he just nudged it again here a moment ago. Let's show you Denny Hamlin's adventure there into the concrete.
Oh, that's a pretty good lick right there.
Yeah, that's the tunnel turn coming out of turn 2 once again. We talked about earlier how that place has been narrowed up. You can see that safer barrier there has taken a lot of the racetrack you used to have out to the concrete, because you use up whatever they give you as race driver, especially through that corner.
Denny, the highest of the 3 Joe Gibbs cars in terms of the point standings. He is 6th in the points, but he's the only one of the 3 that hasn't won this year. Joey Logano's won at New Hampshire, and of course Kyle Busch has won 3 times.
You can see Denny running here. See it getting awful close there again to that exit. We heard in an interview yesterday as we were talking with Carl Edwards during our show. He was talking about with this particular car how much he has to give about a foot more than what he did with the old car, because you just don't have that to lean on. You don't have the aero to help you as you get your car in those situations. So he tries to give himself a little bit more room with these cars. Just don't have the downforce to hold the car on the exit of the corner.
The one good thing about this new car is that if you do hit the wall, it'll keep on going. It's pretty durable. So Denny Hamlin hit it, just kept on going there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the old days, if you hit the wall, you had to fix the car. Now, if you hit the wall, you got to fix the wall.
As we were riding with Carl, you could hear as he went down into the corner, really get out of the gas for a while, but really pick the throttle up hard.
You see the one car right there, Martin Truex Jr., already announcing that he's moving on after the season, and basically in a lame duck situation with this one car. How does that affect you think, Dale, with your mind set for next year and trying to finish off this season?
Yeah, as a race driver, I mean, you're going to every race giving it everything that you can. I know that those situations don't always turn out that well, but the team should be working as hard as they can to keep attracting sponsors and another driver to come to that. The driver's always going to give 110% regardless of what is happening, even though he may be looking at next year, and sometimes when he gets in that race car, he's giving it everything that he has and trying to continue to win races and make that team as good as he possibly can. So they all just work hard and work it out.
I talked to Tony Glover, one of the managers over there at Ganassi, and he was talking about this lame duck situation that this one car's in right now, and he said he's been involved in one of those that really worked well when he was at Felix Sabates, and Joe Nemechek was in a lame duck situation and actually got his first win while in that. So it can be good, and he's kind of laid that out to the team. Hey, you guys got opportunities to succeed, and might as well take it.
It can be motivating for both team and driver to prove that both of you have something left to give. There's a 31 car coming back to the garage area, and we are being told Jeff Burton did it, just brushed the wall in his Chevy. Here again, let's see what happened to him, almost in the same spot.
Yeah, he gets it just a little. He didn't get it quite as much as we saw Denny Hamlin.
You can see really how these guys are all just sliding the car on the exit of the corner there. Just not a lot of grip, and that's what they're trying to find, but it's a fine balance, Dave.
Yep, give you a little update on Jeff's day so far. The crew told me he was pretty happy overall with the balance of the race car, but he radioed to him last time after the last run, if I just had a little more overall grip, and that's what they tried to give him with the track bar adjustment this last time, and of course you saw what happened coming off the corner there. So a little overall grip he's still looking for. That actually helped the last change that they made, but it hurt his turnability, which I think we saw when he tagged the wall there. But generally, I think he's like 14th or so in the speeds right now. Jeff's happy with the 31 car.
You can see as they come off the corner, that little scrape he's got on that right rear corner. You can see right here as they're coming off, Dale was talking about how since they put this safer barrier up, how much room it's taken away. I mean, you can see right here, all this thickness of the wall. The wall used to be way over here, and now these guys have so much less to deal with. See Burton get just a little piece of it. Here comes a guy who usually takes up every bit of the racetrack. Here's Greg Biffle sliding this car off the corner. Look at this. But he leaves enough room.
That might be a little to the extreme of what you want as far as the exit, proper exit of that. But as you said, he left him enough room and didn't hit the wall.
Appropriate that the scratch is right over the Prilosec decal there. And here's a 29 Kevin Harvick, and we mentioned last week at Indianapolis, this is the new configuration car for Richard Childress Racing, and Kevin Harvick did a heck of a job. Brought this car home in 6th spot.
Now, one thing you got going on right here, you could have cars on different tires, because in this practice session, they'll use a couple of different sets. Kevin Harvick has 16 total laps on the track and has likely changed tires past Mark Martin. Mark Martin has 21 laps on his set of tires in this practice session, and you can see different tires or laps on tires can make a big difference in this practice.
Yeah, make a huge difference. But Kevin Harvick, been watching him. His car looks like it's been good on longer runs. You can see Kevin goes in a little below that strip and lets his car work up into that as he tries to carry the speed and exit. Mark Martin coming into the pit area.
So I think I'll come in and get some tires myself.
Yeah, and some of the guys use that strip a little bit different. Some are on it right from the beginning. Others kind of go in the middle of the corner and wash up. We'll see Kevin here going to turn 1. Again, this is the corner with the most banking, 14 degrees. But you see that car move around quite a bit.
He's actually running lower on that in turn 1 than we've seen a lot of cars. If you can get a car that can handle the bumps well, you can make a little bit of time down there if you can get just a little bit lower, but you have to have a really good setup, almost perfect, to run over those bumps.
Yeah, and the bumps actually come into play more if you're on the inside of another car. It makes it difficult to get through there. Whoa, he was about to get him a little bit of a stripe there off of turn 2 also.
A year ago, Richard Childress Racing had 3 cars in the chase, and as of right now, they don't have any cars in the top 12. It is Boyer 16th, Burton, Mears, and Harvick back in 23rd. And still looking all 4 of those for their first win of 2009. Could it come on Sunday? Mark Martin back in the garage area as happy hour coverage continues here at Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Martin, we mentioned, has never won at this racetrack. He has been awfully good here over the years. 6 second-place finishes, but in 45 starts has yet to go to victory lane. But that could change as he is rewriting the record books here in 2009 for that 5 team and for himself at the age of 50. And everybody's scraping the wall a little bit. There's the 47 car of Marcus Ambrose. Dave.
Hey, Andy, so the condition might be tight in the middle and what off the corner?
Loose off.
Definitely. He's been fighting that all day long, and it was just this last run where Marcus Ambrose in the 47 car tagged that wall. So it's been interesting to watch all day as he fights this race car. They actually had a great finish here in June, and if you recall how it happened, he ran in the top 15 all day, but when it became a fuel mileage effort for this 47 bunch, they told him to slow down and save fuel. Well, you know what? The more he slowed down, the faster he ran, and this place sometimes runs a little bit like a road course. Marcus knows how to do that, and he picked up speed when he slowed down.
That's funny, Dave. Dale and I were talking about that driving up to the track, and he's talking about sometimes when you have to slow down, or you have to a situation like you learn something about how to actually make speed by running the track different.
Yeah, it makes you really feel inadequate as a driver sometimes. They tell you to save fuel, and then the next thing you know, you're running a tenth or tenth and a half faster, and then your crew chief's hollering, I told you to save fuel, and you know that you are, and you should have been doing this all along. So sometimes you try a little bit too hard whenever if you just slow down, you can go faster.
There's Tony Stewart, and his day began at 10 o'clock this morning, and on lap number 1 of the first practice session, his day got ugly in a hurry. The points leader and June winner here at Pocono had his hands full in turn 3.
And he just got completely out of shape and really smacked that wall hard in turn 3.
Damaged primary car meant they had to bring out the backup car. Took them just over 34 minutes to get that car in the garage area while Tony watched the others that were on the track practicing. He was able to roll out and finish that first session with the 21st fastest speed. Now in this session, they've made quite a few adjustments in between the two sessions. DJ, he's being shown back in 26th overall.
Yeah, I don't know that they have the speed in their car that they're looking for as they continue to search for that, but I think it's more probably they're working with Tony and just getting the drivability of the car as good as they possibly can. They know that tomorrow is going to be even a little hotter than the conditions they have right now, and so they know there's going to, as they get more rubber, this racetrack's going to change too.
Let's check in on this car, Vince.
That's the 48 of course, Jimmy Johnson, who has been fastest today, fastest in the first practice, fastest in this practice as well, and also a little radio psychology going on. Listen up.
Telling you you're doing good is all I'm trying to say. Nice and easy. Yes. A couple laps ago, I just said every time you tell me I do good, I mess up. So stop telling me it's doing good. Tell me I suck, and I'll do better for you. Kind of what I was getting at. You're doing too good.
There's a couple of guys that know one another pretty well, wouldn't you say? There's some good teamwork going on there, and they're being a bit lighthearted on the radio as well, and it's easy to do as you look at Chad Knaus, the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson. When you are coming off a win at Indianapolis, you've got 5 straight top 10s, and you're second in the points. Fastest here at Pocono as well.
Yeah, you see Jimmy Johnson there getting a sheet from the guys checking the tires and the brakes. There was a brake engineer that was checking the temperature of the rotors. That gives the guys a good idea of how much they're using those brakes or abusing them and how balanced they are.
You can get the idea there that they may have been showing a little more than they actually wanted to show the competition. You'd never do anything like that, did you?
Well, you know, we've never been fast enough to be able to do that. I always have to run as hard as you can, but this team can do that. They're cagey about things like, you know, they don't show up sometimes till late in the race, so maybe that is what they're doing.
And they don't show up until late in the season. Remember, last year it was not until after Kansas, race 29, when they took the points lead for the very first time. They typically hang around, stay in that top 12, and get in the chase, and then they say, okay, guys, we're in a chase. Let's show them what we got.
Yeah, you know, they've looked at this whole thing, and they understand the procedure and what it takes to get yourself ready. It comes down, once you get yourself solidly situated in the chase, then you just look at what's going to be best for those last 10 races. And these guys do it better than everybody else. And they've made other people kind of look at things a little differently as they can start putting on some new tires here, maybe make a run with that.
Yeah, you see they're putting fuel in the fuel cell. They're going to put tires on it. Go out here now, see, once you make a few changes and you've run laps on tires and you feel like you've made some gains. You say, okay, we feel like our car's better than it was when we started the practice. A lot of times what you want to do is fill it up with fuel, put new tires on it now, and see what it's going to act like right off the bat. And make sure you haven't hurt, say, the first part of the run to help that last part.
Yeah, because this is going to be as close as they're going to get to conditions tomorrow. Once we get that rubber, that Hoosier rubber that we were talking about, that the ARCA car is going to put down, this is going to be a track like they're going to see for most of the time. So they'll go out and make what's normally a long run. A long run here at Pocono is 10 or 12 laps, and see how the car is going to react, and that everything they've done is kind of on par with what they thought they had.
You see Chad Canals talking to him. He's being very matter-of-fact, Andy. What is he saying to Jimmy?
Well, they're just talking back and forth about the car, and right now it looks like there's a lot of smiles. Or top of the sheet, there's a lot of good things going on right now. They feel pretty good about their car, and they're, let's say, putting tires on. Jimmy gives such good feedback to Chad, and I'm sure Chad will actually spark some of that, and ask him about his car and really get down into detail and say, okay, what's it doing right here? And when you have the steering wheel at this position, what is it doing? And it really helps bring that out.
Well, let's see what this Jimmy's car owner is doing, or co-owner, I should say, Jeff Gordon, his teammate on the racetrack in the 24 car. He's 12th right now on the speed charts, and they've gone in and made some adjustments on his car, trying to get him up to speed.
We're getting down to the last part of this session. You want to try to really hone in on what your race package is going to be.
You can see Jeff's car hold a really good line there in pretty much the same lane. The lanes here aren't, you don't have lines in these corners, but you have seams of the racetrack where the different ones you can see right here where it's put together, and Jeff's car really stayed in that second groove up, if you will. See him using up a lot of racetrack himself. Tony Stewart almost hitting the wall right there.
He can't afford to do that. He's already in his backup car.
You see Tony really hustling the car, and we commented a moment ago, even with all the hustling and using up the racetrack, he is still just 26th on the speed charts. Obviously not where Tony would like to be right now as this final session, the minutes are ticking away.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much. These guys are not, the way they stack up on this sheet is one fast lap. And, while that's great, you want to be up there and it looks good when you get the printout. It doesn't really tell you exactly what kind of car you've got. These guys have ways of analyzing the data and the lap times when the practice is over. They'll know where they stack up and how they feel like they'll be for the race tomorrow.
Yeah, and all he knows right now, he doesn't know how many laps Jeff Gordon has on his tires, and he knows what he's got. The only thing he can see is that gap getting smaller, so it gives him a little incentive that he wants to drive hard, see if he can drive up to Jeff Gordon's back bumper.
And as you look at the speeds across the top of the screen there, we'll note that 16 of the top 17 speeds that we're showing you came on the driver's very first lap out of the garage area. So, Andy, it is about just running one quick lap, and these guys are worried about running 500 miles worth of laps here on Sunday. But here are the averages for 5 laps.
This is how they stack up after they do put some laps on the tires. You see Mark Martin. No surprise to see him up there. Juan Montoya also up there. You see some different numbers up there when you start actually putting these laps together.
A.J. Allmendinger very consistent in the 44 car.
Yeah, and this is more of what these guys would go back and look at as they look at the sheets after everything is over. How did these guys stack up as they ran? Not worried about that first lap, but talk about Montoya. Same car as last week. Terrific job. The one thing that we saw was as dominant a car as he had, he got back in 12th spot on that restart with 25 to go. He was able to make up one spot and had to fight his way to do that just to get to 11th.
Well, again, talking to Tony Glover, he said on the restart they got bottled up behind the 43 of Reed Sorensen and actually lost about 4 or 5 spots there. Yeah. And they were able to pass some cars. They did pass 4 or 5 guys to get back up to 11th. But it is very difficult to pass with this car and at Indy.
Yeah, and I think that most guys are saying that, these cars are just running the same speed so much that it makes it difficult, especially, Indy's probably on that extreme end of how difficult it is with these cars.
And the key focus for this team now, folks, is to make the chase. Juan Pablo Montoya, Brian Patty, and this entire, Earnhardt Ganassi team says we want to be in the chase. So we want to be consistent. They have 9 top 10 finishes. Don't have a top 5, although they nearly came close to winning the race at Indianapolis. But if they can continue those top 10 finishes, I think they wanted to average, a 12th or 13th place finish. They think they will be in the chase here 6 races from now.
Yeah, they are focused on that chase, but they still have, it's just got to hurt hurt when you lose a race like that. I know they'd love to get in victory lane and make up for it.
Yeah, they sure would. But, you know, every interview that I've seen or everything written that you've seen with Montoya over at least the last month, it's been about making the chase. He is so focused on that, and this talented driver gets that in his mind. He's the guy that can make this happen. They have the race team, everybody in place now to make that happen, and he could be somebody, if he gets himself in that position, then they could really do some good things in the chase.
Vince, you got more on the 42?
What a long visit with Juan Pablo Montoya yesterday, and what impressed me the most was, I don't think there's any doubt about the fact it still stings, but how his focus has gotten so zeroed in on the chase. And he made the comment that he said it was so frustrating at the moment last week at Indianapolis when he realized that they had penalized him for speeding down pit lane. Obviously, we played the radio. He was very angry. He said, but by the time they got back to racing, he was zeroed in once again on getting himself back into position to get that finish that they needed to keep themselves in chase contention. He said he knows they weren't going to change their mind. NASCAR wasn't going to change its mind and give him the trophy later in the day. So he just had to regroup, refocus, and I think they've really done a good job of doing that each week, and certainly that's the case here this weekend at Pocono. That's the kind of demeanor, isn't it, Andy and Dale, that you got to have to make this top 12 when things are going wrong for you sometimes?
Yeah, Vince, you're right. It's the bad days, and it kind of defines how much character a race team has and what you can do with it. And they did a good job at Indy. I was very impressed with it.
Well, one driver who has made all 5 chases for the NASCAR Sprint Cup is this guy right here in the 17 car. That is Matt Kenseth. And they have been in and out of the garage area making some significant adjustments. And here is his progression.
Well, it's been kind of a struggle for these guys. And I think, you know, we talked about this scenario. He's sitting there in 12th. You know, every week is a big week as we have 6 weeks before that chase cutoff. But I think these next 2 here, because they don't seem to be performing very well here, and it has been a struggle for them. And next week, Matt will tell you that he's not the best road racer out there. He's had some really good finishes, but I think that they find themselves in a very precarious position in trying to make this chase. And David Rudeman right behind him and Kyle Busch right there. This could be the team we look at that they could be that could be on the outside looking in.
It's hard to believe we're talking like that about Matt after the first of the season. We didn't think he was going to lose a race.
Exactly.
For a while, he won the first 2, looked unbeatable.
Guys, in the 5-year history of the chase, in the final 6 races, we've had one team that's been solidly in the chase fall out and not make it. So each year that's happened.
A lot of cars on the racetrack, guys. Almost every car in the garage is out there. You see Kurt Busch now working on Reed Sorensen, seeing how his car handles in a drafting situation and in traffic. Clint Boyer was just in the garage area making a quick wedge adjustment, back out there, seeing how that works. That's a good thing to do in this part of the practice. Just make a couple adjustments quick, see how your car reacts so you know what to do on pit stops tomorrow.
Yeah, he's been solidly in the top 10 in both of these practice sessions.
Right now, Boyer is 7th, and he was out on the racetrack behind Mark Martin, who is 3rd in this session. There's the 5 car coming by.
See a lot of cars out there. Ryan Newman, that 39 car, still working on him. Trying to get up to speed here.
Ryan is 9th in this session.
He's working on Sorensen, goes around the outside. Looks like Reed coming in.
There's the 18 car, Kyle Busch, who was in the top 10 in the first session. And in this session, Kyle right now being shown 17th on the chart.
They've only run 10 laps in this session, so I'd say they're making some pretty big changes as they go in to make those changes. We look riding now with David Reagan in the UPS Ford.
21st in this session.
A moment ago, we had 34 cars on the racetrack. Here's the 96 car out on the track trying to get this car dialed in. Bobby Labonte. He's one of the drivers that has swept both races here at Pocono Raceway. And there's Carl Edwards watching the final minutes of practice. He's going to be jumping on a helicopter and an airplane headed out to Newton, Iowa to be a part of the NASCAR Nationwide Series action.
Just a few seconds left in this practice. Everybody trying to get the most out of it. You see, it's still a lot of cars on the track right to the end.
This is Robbie Gordon looking at and see no sponsorship on the side of this car. There's certainly being a single car team and without the dollars makes it difficult for Robbie to compete at the high level that he wants to.
31 car we saw a moment ago. He was one of the better cars in terms of 5-lap average speeds. This is Jeff Burton, of course. And the 09, the veteran Sterling Marlin out of Columbia, Tennessee, driving for James Finch here, trying to get this car dialed in here as they are getting set, and they are now waving the red and black flag, saying that happy hour is officially over here at Pocono.
See a few cars, Sterling Marlin, one of those, taking advantage of every single lap, coming all the way to the flags.
So both practice sessions today, Jimmy Johnson on top of the speed charts in both sessions. A good run for Kevin Harvick. He's second in this session. Mark Martin, A.J. Allmendinger up to fourth. Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the same car he qualified third with at Indianapolis is fifth in this session. And wow, Jimmy Johnson, the momentum continues for the guy that some of the drivers call Superman in the garage area. And why not? He's won the last 3 championships in a row. Jeff Burton giving you a bit of a flaming gas there, headed to the garage area.
Yeah, that's that excess fuel in the exhaust pipe there. He just lit it off just to make sure it didn't burn up on the side of the car.
Now it's all about watching and waiting and thinking about what you did try and what you could have tried. That's the exception of a couple of drivers who are going to get very busy right now, Vince.
Edwards is going to be headed to Iowa to race in the nationwide race, but let's talk about the Cup car. Pretty good in that first practice, the top 5, not so fast in the second practice. What was the difference?
Well, we couldn't get that fast lap laid down in the second practice. I think we're competitive with the Aflac Fusion after a couple laps, but man, some of those guys can just lay down a first lap. So, Bob says he's got some things, that he wants to look at tonight. I have faith in Bob. It seems like this place really suits our team and suits my driving style, and hopefully we can get this car tuned in. But tonight's going to be a blast over at the Iowa Speedway and Nationwide car. Hopefully we can make it 2 in a row there at the City Financial Fusion. We're headed off there right now, and I got to say congratulations to Cameron Dodson for winning the USAC Silver Crown race last night. Came back from an injury and driving our car, and those guys are pumped. They called me last night about 11:30, and they were excited.
Hey, before we let you go, you said this track suits your style. Why?
Well, it's just kind of a big momentum track. There's some bumps, and and there's it's 3 different corners, so it's a real technical racetrack. And I've enjoyed it since my first trip here. I don't know if that's because they give me such great race cars, but I always feel very confident at the beginning of this race, and hopefully we got a car we can compete with tomorrow.
Yeah, second here in June. Figures to be another good one tomorrow for Carl Edwards. Dave?
Been a good one so far for Jimmy Johnson, first in both of the practice sessions today. How comfortable are you in that race car?
I feel good with it. The sun's finally out. Track's going to be heating up. Conditions are pretty forgiving right now for all of us. So I'm optimistic, but at the same time, this track can change quick on us. So we'll just have to be smart and look at our notes. But so far, so good. We won 2 of the 3 practice sessions.
Got to ask you about the beginning of the day. Your next door neighbor here had a little trouble on the green racetrack with perhaps some residue out there. What were the first laps like this morning?
Man, I almost did the same thing right in front of him. I slid in, got off of that patch as well, and thought I was going to lose the car, and gathered it up, looked in the mirror to see where the 14 was, because I thought he'd be right on my bumper. And when I looked up, there wasn't anyone there, and I thought, man, he must have wrecked, and sure enough, he did. For a minute there, I thought maybe there was something wet on the track, or it could have been that residue. But NASCAR took a good look at things, and they said it was dry, but it really was slick that first time through.
Your free afternoon here allows you to do some fun things every once in a while. What are you and the crew going to do?
Yeah, I'm taking the guys, the NASCAR officials, I should say, put on a charity golf tournament for Brianne, who unfortunately passed away a year ago now, maybe 2 now. And either way, we come back each time and try to raise some money for her and remember her and go have some fun today. So if anybody is out on the golf course and there's incoming balls, it's myself or 7 of these other guys, because it's not going to be pretty.
So force him going either direction. He's gone straight today, guys, straight to the top of the charts.
Jimmy Johnson, the best car in both sessions, and I got to wonder if some of the team if they were thinking maybe he showed his hand a little too much here in this session, showed how much he really has.
Well, I mean, that's the thing you got to do. You got to push the car to be able to know what you have. See, now all the final preparations are going to happen on these cars. They're going to make a lot of checks. They get checklists, check the setup. You see Tony Stewart's car up on the scales.
You heard Carl Edwards say, I got faith in Bob Osborne. Bob's got some tricks, got some things he wants to try. How much are you willing to change between now and what's going to start with the race? I mean, as far as your driver's going to be gone, you got no more practice. You're going to be on the racetrack and take the green flag. How aggressive would you be changing the car?
Well, when you got somebody like Bob Osborne and Carl Edwards, you know what you need, and Bob's going to analyze everything that they've done in these practice sessions, and he'll make a very good decision on how to set this car up and put it out there tomorrow for Carl to go out here and try to win this thing.
Yeah, and I would think that most changes that they might incorporate into that would be things that maybe they could undo on a pit stop if it didn't seem to work. You know, they won't take too many chances because they know they have a pretty good car.
See, PK, Pierre Cattell, he is putting a checklist on the car now for all the guys to sign off on, and with each one of those pieces on that checklist have a place for the mechanic to sign off that checks it, and he's responsible for it.
In the old days, you just put a check mark, and then they realized, no, we're going to make you put your initials. So if something goes wrong, we know who checked it or who didn't check it.
Yeah, it becomes part of the records. Once that checklist is finished, it goes in the records, and so if something does happen, they go back and look, hey, how did that slip by?
And here's a team that's got to be feeling pretty good about their day here at Pocono, and the Richard Childress team. Jeff Burton talking with his in the back to us there. That's Clint Boyer, who ended up 7th in this session. I think 3rd in the earlier session, both with good race cars.
Yeah, they're looking forward. I talked to Clint a little bit last night, and he felt like that their team is making some progress. And he was talking more about asking Elliott Sadler and myself more about a new workout program that he's looking to possibly get on and how difficult it was. And so all of these guys are thinking a lot more about that. But they have to be a lot more comfortable with what they see here with last week at Indy and now this week at Pocono in the practice sessions, that they're on the right track.
Denny Hamlin, who won twice here as a rookie in 2006 and had a little brush, or not a little brush, a significant brush with the concrete wall over there off of turn 2. Let's check in down in the 14 garage. Vince.
With Darian Grubb, the crew chief for Tony Stewart. And of course, we saw the incident on the first lap today. How difficult was it to get the backup car ready? You guys spent a lot of time on it, and where are you in regards to how it performed on the track?
I have to say it wasn't too much of a setback. The guys at the shop did a great job, and the entire Old Spice Office Depot crew. They just buckled down and got to work. So got the other car out there and we were pretty happy with it. We got quite a few laps on it, and now we're going to change motors and everything and get ready for the race.
What do you need the car to do better tomorrow in the race than what it was doing today in the practice?
We're going to be watching the conditions a little bit because tomorrow is supposed to be a lot cloudier and about the same temperature. So the grip's going to be completely different, but it's the same as what we dealt with at the last race here. So last time we went from 43rd to 1st, so hopefully we can do it again this time.
You have to play a little psychology with Tony. I know he was very upset that he put that in the wall right out of the gate.
He's upset, but he's a tough guy. He's a driver, and we're proud to have him on our team.
Yeah. That's Darian Grubb, crew chief for Tony Stewart in the 14, Doc.
Very optimistic, as well he should be. They've got some swagger going for them, given what happened here back in June when they started at the back of the pack and came all the way to the front to win that race. We've got lots of motorsports coming your way. How about some Nationwide Series qualifying coming up from Iowa at 1 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. Then we'll have flag-to-flag coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide debut at Iowa Speedway, presented by GoDaddy.com, 4 o'clock Eastern time. And we'll invite you to come here and join us tomorrow, 1 o'clock, for the NASCAR Sprint Cup action at Pocono, presented by Old Spice. It all begins with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Bestick, Brad Doherty, and the gang. Pre-race edition of NASCAR Now, presented by 5 Hour Energy, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we'll wrap up the weekend at 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. The stars and cars of NASCAR will take to the Tricky Triangle, Pocono Raceway, Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Our coverage presented by Old Spice. And it all starts with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Bestick, Brad Doherty, Rusty Wallace will be back from Iowa. And we will kick it off here as just 6 races remain in the race to the chase. Now we're here at Pocono Raceway in northeastern Pennsylvania. The 2.5-mile triangular track where the NASCAR Sprint Cup cars are running, and just under 1,000 miles away out in Newton, Iowa, the brand new Iowa Speedway. That's where the NASCAR Nationwide action is coming up here very shortly. They'll have live qualifying and, of course, the race coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Let's go down in the Sprint Cup garage area and see if Dave Burns has caught up with a driver who's pretty optimistic about tomorrow.
Well, let's talk a little bit about strategy first, Doc, because yesterday Clinton Boyer suckered in the entire NASCAR community by taking 2 very short runs and only 35th best on the charts. And then today, busted off these laps and finished up 7th. So what did you guys change that worked so well, Clint?
Well, I think, Shane's been sick, and I think his hot rod had a little bit of the cold as well. So today they're both feeling better. The hot rod's a lot faster, and just really proud of all the guys in a Hartford Chevrolet. We were terrible yesterday. We made an attempt at a couple runs yesterday, and it rained and gave us the time to regroup and think about it and change things over, and things been fast ever since. So really proud of all the guys and their efforts.
Now, when you were running some fast laps, I was scanning on the radio, and he was telling you to get it or something. What do you think about that when he sort of picks on you and tells you to drive even faster?
I always like that. My spotter, Mike Dillon, he always tells me that. Go get you some, boy. And you hate to tell him, but that's about all you got. Every time you get in a car, you're supposed to be 100%, aren't you?
Well, yeah, and I mean, here today, we were even talking about the fact that sometimes when you slow down here, your lap times actually pick up. So how do you have to temper what they're trying to do to you?
Well, you do, and I think a lot of that stems from just as the tires wear out and the grip goes down, you know, from practice. Even today, you'll go down, you bury it off into the corner, turn 1, clear down to the 1 or so, and, you'll never even be there again tomorrow. You'll be back into the 2 and let it, get easy in the corner and get on the gas quicker, and that'll be faster. So, definitely that saying holds true here is slower is faster.
33 crew chief, car, and driver. Very healthy today, Vince.
With Ryan Newman, who was a top 10 on the speed chart during that last practice, how close is this car to being one that will be a factor on race day?
Well, it's the same car we had here last time, which all the catastrophes we had, we still had a good run with it. So practice was pretty good for the Haas Automation Chevrolet. Its track falls off so much here speed-wise, it's hard to gauge how you are. So we'll go back and crunch the numbers and see where we are speed-wise. But the car feels pretty good. You can feel pretty good and be slow too.
Where do you give up when there's good on one end? It really is not going to be good on the other. How do you find that balance in there?
Well, it's the driver, crew chief, and throttle pedal combination, and it's you just got to get the best of all three. And it doesn't pay to be good in 2 and not good in 1, because you lose getting into that corner and you lose coming off that corner, which is half a lap. So you just got to keep working on it.
Ryan Newman, sure to be one that's going to be in the mix on race day tomorrow. Doc.
Well, this one should be fun to watch on Sunday, because we got Tony Stewart, our points leader, starting at the very back of the pack. You got Kevin Harvick in another strong car, starting back in 23rd position. And Tony Stewart said back in June, one of the reasons that he did so well and won the race was because you're never out of it now with the double file restarts.
Oh man, that's the whole thing about this deal. The double file restarts and the wave around rule have added so many elements to the race, and really you're never out of it now. I mean, you can figure out a way to dig your way back into the competition.
Yeah, there's so many different things that you can put into play here, and so it gives these guys many more opportunities to look at things and change things and do things a little bit differently. Tony's going to do something a little different tonight. We heard these other guys. We got 2 guys going off to Iowa to race, and then I think Jimmy Johnson's going to play golf. Tony's going to his 20th year class reunion tonight, so back in Columbus, Indiana. So should be pretty interesting for him. I'm sure everybody be glad to see Tony.
Like to be a fly on the wall in that reunion, hearing what have you been doing the last 20 years, Tony Stewart? He said, well, I've been busy, yeah. NASCAR Nationwide Series action coming up here from Iowa in this very shortly, but that's been the story today. The 14 car damaged in the first practice session, had to go to a backup car, and now Tony Stewart will go to the back of the field here on Sunday. You see NASCAR over the weekend coming up next. Of course, the NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying, and of course the race at 4 o'clock Eastern time, and NASCAR Sprint Cup action coming your way from Pocono, presented by Old Spice, tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Jimmy Johnson was atop the speed charts in both practice sessions here today, coming off that win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it has been a rough day for a number of former winners here, including Denny Hamlin, who scraped the wall in his car number 11. Should be a fun one to watch here tomorrow at Pocono Raceway. Could Jimmy Johnson continue his winning ways? How about the sensational senior season for Mark Martin and a breakout year for David Rudiman? Could Roush Fenway get back into victory lane? And what about Juan Pablo Montoya? Could he overcome the disappointment of Indianapolis? Remember, tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern time, live coverage from here at Pocono. Now, coming up next here, live NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying from Iowa Speedway. So let's go to Marty Reed.